Hi there, and welcome to LogRocket. So today we have an exciting guest with us. We have Simen from Sanity. And hi, Simen. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for coming. It's morning over here, so I'm refreshed and excited to get into what we have to talk about today. Is is Sanity your first big project that you did? Is that the first open source and platform driven project that you embarked on?
Commercially, yes, but actually, I had an open source motion control system back in the days. That was just open source because that's like it was free hosting on GitHub at the time. That system ended up, I ended up finding that in almost all kind of DIY grade 3D printers in the world for like a moment. So that was
That's really
a
cool.
huge success, but I like benefited absolutely zero from.
Well, you benefited in spirit, right? It's kinda
Oh,
cool that
absolutely.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. Just all right, just sliding that little note in there. Uh, well, we're really excited to talk about Sanity in particular today, so I'm probably gonna not get this correct in one little elevator pitch here, but it's a CMS platform that's kind of bringing the bridge between data and what we traditionally understand as content and allowing us to access it and manipulate it in all sorts of ways. And we'll get into a more refined definition about what that means when we give you the stage here. But personally, from my point of view, this is a very exciting piece of technology because I'm coming from the WordPress land where you have everything that's sort of like, all right, you can get it made up for you and you can put in content with a GUI and use it with WordPress. And everybody knows that. It's been done and it kind of pigeonholes you into their platform. So seeing this, it's kind of very open. We have a lot of APIs to use and a lot of interesting ways to view data in new query languages, right? Even that we haven't touched on before. So please help the audience understand a little bit more from my definition about what sanity is and what exciting things that you're bringing to the table with your team.
Yeah. So I mean, at the simplest like use case, you can use Sanity as just as a very simple kind of content authoring system. It has a lot of kind of useful features like real-time collaboration. Like teams can write together. It has all of these kind of beautiful authoring tools. The kind of content models are really rich, so you can any kind of thing you want to be able to show in your front ends, you can model that in Sanity very naturally. So these are like in a sense like huge things that are like very hard to pull off, but also like when you squint, they all kind of become just this kind of pleasant backdrop, like kind of just where it makes working with Sanity at its simplest as a kind of replacement for WordPress. Very pleasant, very efficient, but also this kind of leads into a lot of other opportunities that kind of making content into some making sure content is in a form that can be used in several different designs and platforms and in media, different media, is is a very powerful kind of thing, and to make sure the people creating the content are still working naturally without like being necessarily aware of that opportunity. But then there are a number of other kind of things that we felt the need to have when we kind of, I mean, let's if it's okay with you, let me kind of take us back to where we felt the need to create Sanity, because we didn't actually want to be a startup. We were super happy as this kind of small boutique design agency. We were
You started as a design agency.
Yeah, we've been like
Okay.
actually, yeah. So we were this
Yeah, let's go back. That's a great idea.
yeah, yeah, let's like we're back in like 2015, 2014. We have this small group, we have we had this table in Oslo. Our plan was, this is the biggest our company will be, like we will be, and like we can, as long as we can sit around this company, we'll know how to run it. And and the only way to grow is
Sounds
to just have,
nice.
yeah, it's very nice. And the only way to grow then is to have more and more like richer and richer clients, I guess. Like you can't do more work, you just have to do more valuable work. It was exciting. We were getting some really, really fascinating customers at this point. And it was a company called the OMA, Office of Metropolitan Art, they contacted us. This is the agency of Rem Koolhaas, a very famous architect. And this was like mind blowing to myself and my co-founder Evan, because we have all his books. Like, we've been fans of Rem Koolhaas since we were like discovered him in our early 20s. So this is like, he knows like about our existence. Like, he contacts us. He's seen some of our stuff in some book, and you're like, that's incredible. Of course, it wasn't actually him; it was one of his partners. But like, fair enough. It was like we got to work for him, and when they have been creating kind of seminal buildings and concepts since the early 80s, late 70s. This is all kind of, everything is is monumental, beautiful, and there is like, our dream for them was to kind of create this as a kind of repository of like yes, it's their brand site, it's what like builds and explains their like what OMA means in the world of architecture and the culture at large, but also this is like a repository of everything they've done. And then we realized that to them, the website was actually mostly important in order to kind of talk to people like us who weren't actually buying very expensive buildings, but just needs to know about them. And then to talk to the actual customers, like they have nation states as customers, like Portugal and China. And for them, it was like designing bespoke books. So they actually sat every day. So people were sitting, creating, designing specific books for specific clients. And then they had this process where when you ask for a kind of an offer, like let's say we wanted to build a park, like let's say we were running Dubai and we want to build like a park with a bridge and some retail space, and we'd go to these architects and we say like, what have you done that's kind of relevant, that's kind of something like this. And actually there was a department in the company whose only job was just to remember the history of the company, and you go to them and you'd ask them. And of course this is very inefficient. So we told them like, we should probably create this repository. It will power the website. It will be the source of these books, and it will have a powerful search tool. So like these people who work on this kind of RFPs, as it's called, they can focus on the really specific, really hard creative work, and the generic, like give me bridges with retail space, that's like a 2-second job. So we actually sold this job, priced it, just expecting that, of course, content tools can do this. Like WordPress has evolved, right? Like this is all now a thing. And as we started researching the implementation, we realized that nothing could do this. We needed a content system that was very intuitive to the content teams, to the digital teams, still ended up as a database. Like for the developer perspective, it should be like a proper database. It should be possible to mix data and text. So like if you define, let's say, a data type for a building with a location and a name and a city and this kinds of thing, you should be able to use that anywhere in your data, also as like a part of a running text. So this should be like a very expressive data model. And then we should be always safe that this model can be represented in any form. So that if you create this content, we should be able to create it, like render it into the website, but also in the book, and also as this kind of business development tool. And in a sense, we realized that we had to create Sanity in anger and disappointment. So the first version was almost like a defensive thing. Then we kept using this tool. We used it for MIT. We used it for Diller and Scofidio in New York. And I think it was MIT who asked us, like, this thing you're using, it's actually better than anything we can buy. Like, what is it? And then that's when we kind of connected the dots. I'm like, we should probably be the people making this system, not the people making these websites. So that's when we inverted the business model. And it's been a very interesting journey, because now we are talking to all these huge, incredibly impressive brands, and they are all struggling with creating these kind of integrated experiences. Like you have a history where you have, like you say, like you deploy your insular Shopify solution, your WordPress deployment, like you have separate tools for each touch point for your customers. Very often this ends up being separate teams, and like creating a cohesive experience for your customers is very hard. And this goes regardless if you were like a media company, a retailer, you will struggle with this. And trying to kind of integrate these experiences is both about integrating of course, the touch points for the customers. It's about bringing teams together, like giving them a single pane of glass to understand what kind of experiences are we creating for our audiences. And then, of course, being able to kind of bring the data together from the various sources. Very often your content is not only the things you write, it can be your kind of your merchandise. It can be, if you're a like you're a real estate developer, it might be your developments, like might come from different systems. Bringing all that together in like a some, like we call it the content lake, bringing that together, bringing the teams together, and then kind of integrating that. That's something that I didn't know how hard it was when we started this, for people to actually pull off, and being then coming to the market with a tool that like really lets companies do that, and being in a sense almost alone in that space right now. I feel that our struggle right now is that a lot of companies don't know to expect it. It's like we need to help companies understand that this is actually possible. Like the tools exist now, or maybe it's just us. I don't know. Don't want to. That's how, at least how I see it, of course. But it's a lot of companies don't think it's even possible. Don't know to dream about that. So they just we just assume that, like, yeah, we'll just have 100 different WordPress deployments and we'll just kind of wrangle it and
I mean, I feel like you hit a sweet spot at this time in history because we're dawning on a new age of digital literacy where people understand how to use GraphQL, they understand how to use Next.js. So the idea of stepping out of a cookie cutter platform like WordPress and giving you the power, saying, listen, you go figure out the tools, what you want to use, that's actually has, the carbon power to catch on now because people know how to really build these rich interfaces, and you don't have to be a master's computer science student or somebody who's been grueling away in their basement for years to really understand how this stuff works. So that's probably another great thing you guys have going for you. And I'd love to touch on, like, one of the key features here, the key like paradigm shifts is that data and content are kind of like fused into one sort of understanding, because you're saying, well, content can be your real estate developments, it could be sensor data, who knows, it's all one body of data that we can use to create postings and articles, or then go use in another piece of our application, right? Completely separate. What was like one of those difficult challenges? Because you said I had no idea it was that hard. It's that hard to bring this data together. So what made this so hard that makes me spinning up a Postgres RDS not hard?
Yeah, exactly. No, no. One of the first things we actually did when we realized we wanted to make Sanity into a company, uh, was just talking to various companies about their challenges. I would just walk around like, I wonder why are e-commerce experiences so drab? Like, why are there? You use the word cookie cutter. I use that term a lot when I talk about digital experiences. It's a lot about this feeling of content being just like a data record that you put into a template, and then you're kind of done. And then this leads
That's
to
how
like
it's done.
that's how it's done. Like
Yeah.
every if it's like a $40,000 bracelet, or it's like a $1 kind of band-aid, it looks the same in your store. It has the exact same picture, exact same layout. Same thing goes for if you're like I was reading New Scientist for a long time on their kind of in their app, and I couldn't realize, like, in their digital form, I did not know there was a special issue because the articles always looked exactly the same. And I would look in the paper version on an airport, and I realized, oh, this is like a special issue about like quantum physics. I didn't realize because the layouts didn't carry over. They don't have the tools to have this kind of expressive control when I'm in the digital domain, which is weird. Like, it's where everyone is, right? Like we still keep building these kind of beautiful concept stores, but we don't bring that kind of care and attention to the digital space, which is kind of just mind blowing. And then I was asking different companies, like, why. I was expecting some kind of rational explanation, like, yeah, we tested it, but people don't care, or like it's different. Like the competition is about price and, I don't know, delivery, stuff like that. That's what I would expect. What I got was a lot of, it's just very hard. We are building our own CMS, or like, how much is Sanity? We want it. Like these kinds of answers. Clearly, everyone wants this. It's just too hard with the current set of tools. And I think, like you said, a beautiful thing right now. So one thing is, of course, I'd say Sanity makes this possible, but you're right. Like one thing is just the competencies coming together. Like this is possible now because, like you said, it's easier to build these kind of tailor-made front ends because just the development work is easier. So it's easier for someone who's kind of has a designer mindset to also be a developer, because I think at this point we need to just bring those things, like those kind of mindsets together. Designs have to be receptive to the content, so they has to have a little bit of logic in them. So this is becoming possible. I think it seems to me in the research that a lot of the challenges is about almost just bringing the tools together. Like I have my huge kind of Hybris or Commerce Cloud deployment, which is doing the kind of shopping experience, and then I have all my content that would connect this, like help me understand the products better. They are over here and they are separated, um, and there is, like you said, the content. Like we say, there's one thing we keep saying, like content is data. I don't know if it resonates with everyone who should understand the concept. The point is, like you said, like content is more than what is created and authored by a content team. It is, in our conception, is everything that an organization wants to present to its audience. So it might be, and the reason you want to bring these things together is because often you want to contextualize things. You want to tell the story about your other pieces of data. So like, let's go with the retail, like the real estate developer. I'll have all these developments. They will be in a different like system where I know about them. I know about their existence. I know about like what's available, the locations. Maybe I even have architectural drawings. And then if I can put all of that online and then let people just figure it out. But of course, much more powerful thing is I'm telling the story about this real estate. This is Hudson Yard. This is like for a specific kind of like a specific kind of retail spaces. I'm building a story around this and like laying it out. And in order to do that, I need an integration between these kind of data sources and the content teams that are going to put this storytelling together. And let's say one of these things have been rented out for 5 years. I want this thing to disappear, even though I kind of create all the storytelling around it. Like, thank you, that content has done this work, but I want this to automatically go down now because that thing is kind of sold. So these kinds of things will, for an audience, for someone kind of interested in my products, in my storytelling, in having a relationship with my company, they will feel the presence. Like they will feel like we are there, like we are, as if in a good retail experience, as if in a good store, I'll feel there is a presence of someone helping me. This is so often absent from the kind of current kind of product experience. And then I'm talking about retail now because that's kind of excites me a lot and it's very easy to see there. But this goes for like the New York Times experience, the New Scientist experience. Like I'm unsure if they have been able to move that kind of care and attention from the kind of paper-based designs and into the digital space, making it a little bit harder to have that relationship with their product.
Maybe could we go over for maybe a use case example? Let's say I ran a store, okay, and I was using WordPress and my writer that I hired on the weekends to put out, new things about my products.
So,
So
what's your products in this
yeah.
in this fantasy? Like, what are we selling?
Let's sell board games.
Board
Uh,
games, perfect.
yeah, yeah. There's a standardized type, I guess, there, so we can wrap our heads around, and there's a lot of variability
Exactly.
in between.
We have this kind of curated store of lesser known board games. We've like scoured Kickstarter. We have these kind of games that you can't get everywhere. That's our store, right? Like we have like, if you want to like the
Great.
special kind of board games, we have it. So like you said, we're probably on Shopify in this example because that's like easy to do. Like we can just upload our images and so that's how like our first version. We'll just kind of grab those images from our suppliers. We'll put them on Shopify. We'll set some prices and some inventory, and then off we go. So this is version 1. There is no content, basically just the product descriptions. So
Yeah, you just hand upload.
your stringer has kind of taken copy pasted things from various sources, try to wrangle them into some similar form of like your tone of voice, which will be very generic, and okay, our story is there. So hopefully like we have something unique, so people will, a certain kind of people, like high, let's call it highly engaged people, will find this. They will talk about it on Reddit and on Twitter, and like they know, oh yeah, this, you know, these games that were only possible to get on Kickstarter and they are now sold out, you can actually get them. There's a place for them.
Board game
And
fanatics, they'll be coming, right?
they will be coming, right? To a
Yeah.
certain extent, right? But maybe we discovered that board game fanatics, they already have these games, at least the ones they want. So they say like, oh, this is grand, and then little happens. So we realized like we need to buy some AdWords, and we buy some kind of, we record some Instagram things, we put them on Instagram, like we buy some eyeballs. So we get some of those, like not hyper fans, not like fanatics. Some of them will come in, we'll see our sales increase, but we will do some kind of informal research. We'll talk to people, and we realize they see it looks exciting, but I feel like, is it hard? I don't know. Is it like, is it suitable for kids? I don't know. Like, will I kind of, what is this just for like hyper nerds? Is it like Dungeons and Dragons? I remember that's kind of like, oh, I'm too old for that. So we realized we need to kind of frame this. There is a storytelling job we have to do. And actually, we also realized that the fanatics, or at least the people we do resonate with, they keep forgetting about us, because they see us as just this repository. We were nothing more to them. So they will still go just to Google for the game, and yeah, happily find our kind of listing there that we pay for and maybe buy it. But we just keep having to buy that attention over and over again. So we realized this is where we decided to do the storytelling. So we set up like we set up a bespoke front end, so integrating Shopify and some content. In this example, we're from Sanity. We realized that we have kind of games in certain groups. They are like some of them are like casual games that are suitable for kids and families. Some of them are kind of deeper games that take like a week. So what we'll do is we don't have a lot of time, so we'll create these kind of guides. So we'll say like, yeah, this is for the kind of, if you want to go deep, this is the guide. Maybe we can even like personalize it. We'll tell the story about like this is content marketing, right? Like I'm telling the story, and I'll link into these different games in the store. And now I have this kind of way of contextualizing that set of games, and then I can So I'll tell you this story about like, as a customer, you arrive and you don't only find a game, you'll be helped to see, oh yeah, this is a game for people who are like looking for this, but actually next to it, it will be like a different guide, like casual games, like pick up and play games. I'll go there and they will tell me a little bit about those different games. And right now we have created very little content, but we can link it to because it's structured content. We can say like, yeah, this is the text. It links to the products. Our front end can discover for every product, like this is the guide that this kind of specific product goes into. And I can tell you about the other products that kind of is related to this, but not as a kind of other customers who looked at this thing as well. And that feels kind of absent and mechanical. This is someone took some care. And our collection, we have 107 games, so we have time to contextualize basically 70% of our collection, and the rest will kind of just go in as like same category, like casual card games. So we'll be able to put them at the end of our guides. So this is a very simple kind of story. We didn't create a lot of content, but we kind of integrated the content experience, the shopping experience. And what we discover now is like, oh, people related to our tone of voice, they kind of saw our storytelling. We are building a relationship with an audience. Like they keep coming back, and they are not going to Google. They are coming to us, and they're expecting more from us. And now we are kind of, we realize we have now a little bit of an audience. We should probably create our own games now. Like maybe we can take some of these ideas we had, and we have like 100,000 people are coming to our site every week looking for stuff, and we are missing certain things. Like the market hasn't provided certain things that we think we would be able to sell. We see we don't have enough casual games. We'll create a number of casual games, and now we are building this kind of community around us. And I think that is something that almost every organization needs, even if you're just even if you're a government organization doing forms for kind of social services. You want to have a certain kind of relationship with an audience and show that you're present there for them. That is like that what you are experiencing is a human connection. It's not just like a mechanical system that leaves everything up to you.
Yeah, so I would love to check in and ask. So where we're at right now is we're selling games and we're getting intel on the games. So we're kind of looking at what's happened to what we manually posted at first, and making some insights, reorganizing how we present things to the user on our front end interface. And this kind of continuous iteration of going back and saying, what, here's our photos, here's our descriptions, and here's our data from that. Here's the front end that we're going to create. Doing that. So what Sanity is doing is it's unifying that whole iterative process into, a single data lake that, we can call it, right? That allows us to go back and forth easily, not just on the design and front end, but for people who may not be as technical minded, and they can interface with that data as well. Would that be fair?
That's absolutely fair. Like that content lake within this context, it would integrate content from the Shopify experience and from the kind of whatever we've come up with as kind of content concepts. Being able to then combine them, and for someone designing the actual kind of front end experience can now kind of grab these guides, can grab these products, can kind of mix and match them in ways that seem to engage our audience and connect with people. And then actually we can take all of that content, because it's now in a media independent form. We realize that actually we want, when we buy ads for this, we actually have all the assets. We can just script all of that. Like we can basically just take all of that like carefully crafted content and convert it into Instagram ads and Google ads, AdWords, and it will have our content. And then as we, as a like super small content team, sit and look at our empire, we will be able to understand this as one kind of, even though our customers are seeing us several different places, maybe, or even on Amazon. Maybe we have like a, what do they call it? Like a Z shop. I don't know. Maybe we're everywhere, and we can run all of this from like one centralized place and understand what we're doing. And our customers will be all over the place, right? So they will, when we don't do this, we will suddenly, someone will tell us like, you have this weird thing on like this AdWord I found, and we have kind of missed that because we are not running this as kind of a integrated experience for us. So the experience for our customers kind of starts falling apart. And this kind of, you can say it's a small thing, but it kind of, to a customer or to someone that kind of wanting to relate to our product, it kind of is this little crack that shows that we kind of a little bit don't care about them and their particular experience with us. So this is about like showing care and presence, and kind of that you connect. So I often say, like, when you invest in a solution like this, the way to frame it in a sense is to feel like we are connecting, as someone implementing this. Like if I'm a developer working, or a designer working on creating an experience like this, I should frame it as like, I'm not creating a consumer experience and then I give my content kind of people some tools to put stuff in there. I should think of this as like, I'm connecting like a team of humans to an audience, and I want these people to feel connected. I want the content team to understand what's going on, hopefully surfacing signal from what's going on in our kind of products, and then having them be able to create and respond to things that happen in the market, be able to rename products if they kind of realize that that's not working well, be able to kind of respond to pop cultural events, maybe even like in a quick way, in a real way that kind of touches all my touch points. These things, they have been, it's kind of the promise of the like the digital experience management kind of dream. But because these systems are so, they are so centralized, they are so, like you talked about WordPress, it has kind of some of the same properties. It's very easy to set up and run, as long as you don't need to kind of connect things in a more kind of non-trivial way. But almost everyone needs that at this
Yeah,
time. Like,
right. We need flexibility. That's like the
yeah,
paramount feature here, is flexibility and interoperability between your data and your history of owning and organizing that data. I think that's what's really exciting here, is like, as a developer myself, that it excites me because I can put data in and then repurpose it using paradigms and other tools that are familiar to me. I can go take that data. I can run analytics on it. Hell, if I wanted to, you can really do whatever you want. So I think I'd love to talk about why that has not been done before. Like you've said once or twice now, like that's hard. It's hard to take this data and just throw it in the lake. It ain't that simple. So why hasn't this done before? Why is it a difficult problem? And what's one of those hurdles that your team had to jump over, that you didn't expect to?
yeah. So one thing, we did a number of things very early on that you'd normally do let's say, late in a company's history. Like we knew that we wanted Sanity to be um, a, like a proper data platform. Like we felt that one of the things that annoyed us with the headless space was that they provided these kind of specific content APIs that kind of put a lot of expectations on how I would to use them. In a sense, to be kind of at least back in those days, I would call them like they would be like blog APIs. I would get like a content type and I will get like a number of them sorted by date or something. They were very limited and very like specific. So I felt like it needs to be, from a developer perspective, that needs to feel like a database. It needs to be doing all the things I want from a database. I needs to be able to kind of connect different pieces of content together for me on the server side. I don't have time to kind of grab all of those pieces. Like I want to show the games. I want to grab the guide. I want to grab the kind of author and creators of those games. I want to grab all of those pieces of data for my kind of main game page. And I will have the server like Sanity fix that for me and then give me exactly what I want to show. And I want to be able to express that. And I want to be able to have that kind of repository of content. I want that to be able to sync to everything, like all of my other sources that I also care about. I want to be able to integrate all that content. For one thing, I want to present it to my audience. I'm like, let's say we have we are syncing. Let's say we have the Kickstarter kind of statuses on games that are coming online. So we want to sync in their kind of Kickstarter kind of current status into our content, because that's part of that. Like games that are about to be published. That's one of our categories. So we're syncing in that piece of content, but this also is about then being able to have that in a place where the teams can leverage that, like can yeah, exactly, they can curate that content, display that. It's part of their world. It's just not just something that's been integrated in like a system later. I have that as material as a content team. And the other thing is that particular place where the content team works, because we wanted that to be a real-time collaborative thing. Like we wanted it to be like, let's say, Google Docs for like arbitrarily complex data structures. So we kind of did that very early on, even though that's incredibly hard for this kind of content. And
That
then
must be.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
it was really
You made
like a
Google
mind
Docs
bender.
for content.
Yeah, and then like these can be graphs of content, like it's super complex. So you still can do like show me what like who did what to this document at any given time. Like this person moved a map marker, this person created a new reference. It was incredibly hard, but we felt like this needs to get in early, because it's going to be just harder and harder. Like we don't need to have that from the start. Then we wanted that kind of authoring experience, the place where, so of course everyone has a system where you can invest in the end user experience. And like you said, that there is loads of new tools and it's been better than before. But what's often very hard is you want to be able to invest in the content creator's experience as well. You want to create, because if it's about creating this connection between a kind of group of real humans and their audiences, that needs to be expressive and intuitive for them as well. And it needs to be integrated. So one thing we did very early on is we like our entire studio, like we call the authoring experience, is an open source. You get all the source code for that, but it's also very pluggable. It's easy to kind of plug new things in there and still be able to upgrade in a simple way. So it's like, even though you can do anything, it's not like WordPress where you have to basically reinvest everything over again when you upgrade. So this is like a plugin platform, but it also lets you integrate. This is something we didn't realize at the beginning is important, but as a company, you will create these different properties. Like you have our store, maybe we have like a specific sub brand somewhere, we have different touch points. Being able to then have this studio bring all of these
The
different
Sanity Studio, right?
yeah, bring.
Just so the viewers can make sure everybody's on the same
Thank you.
page.
The Sanity Studio, for being
Yeah.
able to bring all of the different properties into the same kind of pane of glass and have the teams be able to see that as like one whole was incredibly important for us as kind of we realized what we were making. So these things, they kind of unification, the integrated experience for the end user, the integrated data platform, letting you kind of flow data in and flow content out, and then this integration of the teams, being able to have the teams see the same world as the customers and or the audiences, and having them able to see what the other teams are doing in real time. This is kind of the pieces that needed to come together, which is very hard to pull off.
And if I'm using Sanity Studio, it's you know, I could go back to the board game example. I could go get those most recent updated Kickstarter that are coming games, right? That's in our data lake. That's something that as a creator, I can go in Sanity Studio and say, listen, this is just data in a database that is meaningful to us as telling a story with our customers with content. Let me pull that in and use a GUI to make a post. Let me exactly. And that's kick ass.
Stay updated, right? Like if then that game that I just wrote about yesterday now gets funded, that will just be updated in our content lake. And let's say we have a synthetic page that shows like games that were just funded that that we are going to stock. That will now automatically go onto there. Even so, there is the level of automation and there's a level of kind of curation and deliberate kind of yeah. So I think that being able to combine those is incredibly powerful and important.
So, and on the topic of the live editing, like in Sanity Studio, this comes out of the box, right? Like I could be working on our updated games page while my friend is, and we can see our live impending versions about
Yes.
what's going to be posted on that page.
Exactly. Like when and if I want to go in and add something to your post as you are working on it, you'll see my little face coming in, and you'll see that stuff pop up, and you'll be able to revert it if you disagree easily. You'll go say see the log, see Simon added these new games to your guide, revert. And yes, this comes out of the box, and this is maybe something that I'm not talking enough about because the one thing even like all of these things are obviously valuable, like everyone wants these things. The
Of
problem
course,
that the reason you don't do it
publisher's
is because
dream.
it's expensive, it's hard, right? So the big thing here is for these things to be very easy to get started on. So like Sanity is something you can set up in minutes. Setting up like a Shopify connection, we have starters and integrations for that. That's like a 10-second affair. um, so our dream was to have something where, because very often we are driven by tactical needs, like we need to sell more of those speakers, and then we need to tell this story. So we just and that we have like 3 weeks. So our dream was like we want a system where you can do that, you can move tactically like that, but then later you can kind of stitch this back up. Like as you see this thing became important, you can kind of fold this into your like just say like your unified Sanity Studio, because these things compose well. And now you kind of say like, now we're back to this single pane of glass. So in a sense we try to create something that's super easy, super convenient, but then lets you have this strategic investment over time because you can compose them. And of course this comes also from the headless aspect. This is also like a feature of like Next.js or Gatsby, and this kind of comes with that composability kind of idea. But very often in like a headless, like a classical headless CMS, they are very much like one authoring kind of space, one one asset, like one property. Like there's like there's no unification there. I can't kind of stitch them together easily. So that's one thing where I sometimes feel like the kind of headless space is a little bit like putting a JSON API on WordPress, and like that's it. Sometimes, like if I want to be a little bit evil, but that's how I sometimes feel frustrated when we get compared. Like when someone calls Sanity like a headless CMS, like yeah, like it is headless. Yes, but that's not kind of
It
the
has
thing.
that
That's
feature,
just yeah,
correct?
that's just so like obviously it is headless. Like
Yeah,
everything is headless if it's like relevant right now. That's just obviously we didn't even know the word when we created Sanity. It was like yes, of course it's about APIs. Yeah, yeah, okay, let's call it headless. I don't care. Yeah, fine.
right. Um, yeah, we're running up on time here, but I have a lot more that I'd love to touch on about Sanity. We're gonna have to like power on through this, but uh, to to
I'll be
quickly touch
shorter,
on
briefly.
who is Sanity for, right? So I mean, we're talking about CMS systems here, so obviously news sites, e-commerce stores, but it could be so much more. Like this is a back and forth system for the back end and the front end head of
Yeah.
the house, so to speak.
I,
So it could really be like, how could you, where does your mind stretch when you're building this? Like what are some crazy use cases you could think about? Because even me building my personal website, this would be perfect. This would
exactly.
be perfect.
That was kind of our vision. So going back to like we wanted something that was so there's just like our thinking when we realized we were going to make a content system was like there's just too many of them. Like there's like a specific CMS that's popular with Nordic newspapers, and it's complicated enough that it's a whole career to learn it. And if you do, then you're making Nordic newspapers, right? If you're doing WordPress, it's like it makes sense. You'll be making marketing sites for forever. If you're doing Shopify, you're making shops, of course. So our thinking was we want something where, as a developer, I can invest in this, and it's as good a thing to use for my boyfriend's kind of recipe site, as it is for like a kind of like a cosmic fast food brand, which is like what we have done. Like some of the biggest brands in the world is using Sanity for these incredibly complicated and beautiful experiences, bringing them together. We talked about this integrated experience management, but it's also being used by loads and loads. Like our free plan is very kind of generous. So most people who just want to make like a small blog or something, it will be free. Our weird use cases, like it's important to us that it's good for e-commerce and media. Like New York Times is using Sanity, also like huge e-commerce brands. It is being used by like for scientific publishing, like science journals. It's being used for loads and loads, like it's like simple like personal sites, portfolios, stuff like that. It is being used for a number of like what like excites me sometimes is like when it's being used for like let's say first non-web, like people using Sanity to serve data into, for example, like syndicating content into DoorDash or Uber Eats. Like they have like their content model, and they'll be able to kind of feed that into other kind of properties. But then even more fascinating is when it's not even digital. Like there's people making books that are just authored in Sanity and then basically converted to the designs via scripts in InDesign. And then you have people there's a company doing training doll for first aid, like responders. And these scripts for this doll is created using Sanity. So it's like not even visual. It's like a set of training scripts. So there's all kinds of things that people are doing using Sanity.
What if I had a Raspberry Pi that was taking the temperature of the different rooms in my house,
Yeah.
and I want to store that somewhere and write a blog about my monitoring and what I'm doing, and I could have maybe live graphs or articles or something. The Sanity could help me do that
Oh
too.
yeah,
Really,
like our foosball table at the office in Oslo is we have like it's logs every match. It maps the skill level of each player and kind of balances the teams when you join. This is all run on Sanity. We used to have like a brewery that was run on Sanity. I know one of our developers, he run his house plants using Sanity. He has a Raspberry Pi measuring the kind of humidity levels in the different plants, and
yeah.
can have this dashboard and can kind of water them like with some Sanity magic. Yes, you can connect everything. And like so of course the content lake is a real-time data platform, and you can either like grab data as like I'm reading this to render a page, but you can also subscribe for data. So you can say like I want to observe, let's say you're doing your temperatures in your house and you want to have like a real time. I don't know if this makes sense, but let's pretend this is a good idea. So I'll be when someone is opening that page, I want that content to update. Like I want to see then this page can actually just subscribe to those temperatures, and when they change, when your Raspberry Pi kind of writes, it will say, yeah, there's a subscription for this category of temperatures. I'll ship like a patch to the front end about
Do
this
you
change.
see Sanity having a footprint at all in in I would call it the workhorse area of our modern computing space? So, monitoring, logging, real-time updates for machines. I know that's kind of different than the content side of the world and could be more real-time and more heavy. I wasn't sure if that's at all in the
Yeah,
design
no,
scope right now.
I'd say like we'll say like we say content is data, and we think real time is in a huge part of that, like being able to connect. Like of course, in order to create a real time authoring, we had to create a real time system, but this also goes to like delivering content in real time. I think people will expect in the future that every piece of content that you have on your like browser open, I come back 2 hours later, I expect it to still be current. Like I think it will update as as I am away. So I think that's a huge thing to solve. So in one sense, like solving for what you're saying is the thing the content space also needs to do. So yes, in that sense, we are very focused on we define kind of content as whatever piece of data you want to present to an audience. So that's kind of our framing. But then within that, I'm seeing like time series data, like financial sites, or like maybe you are covering like an election, like loads of like real-time data streams that you need to kind of curate and tell stories about and distribute in real time to audiences. Sanity is really good for this right now, and I think as we move forward, we will be even more fantastic. Like this is things that like non-text, non-image content is a very huge focus for us going forward.
And that's like a whole new can of worms too, because it's like, well, it's really easy to pipe the data in there and it's really easy to know what it is in your human brain. But it's one hell of a task to tell the computer, hey, those 17 billion data points, I would love to
Yeah,
draw a line on that.
you just summarize that because this person only cares about like 10% of that information right now.
Right.
But in 10 seconds, he will click on something and he will care about like every like minutiae of this because he wonders what happened to his savings right now, like right this minute, because the Federal Reserve changed their interest rate, and when did it happen, right? Yeah.
And when did it happen? Everybody needs to know. So, well, so it really sounds like Sanity is coming into an interesting position to disrupt pretty much every corner of how I would build a presentation platform for content and data that I might have at an organization. Sounds like we could, traditional e-commerce. We could even step into the monitoring and aggregations on data and time series. You said Sanity is good at doing that, or even as a general purpose database. So after our interview, I'm gonna go check out your website, see what I'm gonna be charged for if I have your cloud service, because that's something you have to look at. You can't certain use cases. But as you said, the free plan is very generous. So I guess we should wrap things up because you're gonna have to go, and I know Emily and myself are gonna have to go. Is there any links or other resources that we should throw down there? So we're definitely gonna put in the Sanity Dev website, so viewers can go find it.
So of course there is like the structured content conference that I would really love people to come to. I don't think there is a lot of conferences in this space that is focused on the thinking around like the content space, about like how to work with the content, not specifically technically, but like how should we think about this strategically, and how should we use that, and like of course how do we actually do that as developers and designers. And I would love for people to come there, because I feel our biggest challenge right now, I said it at the top of this show, that our biggest challenge is people need to understand the opportunities and learn to expect these things. Like we don't expect to be the only company kind of providing this, of course. It has to become a field, right? So hopefully everyone who kind of resonates with that message could come to that conference and help us kind of build that field together. That would be my dream.
That's a very awesome link to close with. So we have the structured data conference
Structured
and
content. Structured
structured.
content.
Okay, content. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Content.
Yeah.
Keyword there.
So we have the content lake. So it's a play on data lake, and we have the structured content. So of course it's data that's structured, but it's content.
So we'll definitely include that and the Sanity Dev website. I've been on their website myself. Fantastic documentation if you want to get started. Yeah. So it's easily navigatable from the Sanity Dev website. So if you're interested, go check that out. And thank you for your time, Simen. It was great talking about structured data and this radical new way to build blogs and websites and everything beyond. So
thank you for
your
indulging.
time.
I love talking about this.
Yeah, me too. All right. We'll see you around.